Hello and welcome to The Nation ASEAN Plus. I'm Jessie Chahal coming to you live from Wisma Bernama in Kuala Lumpur. Every weekend we bring you stories that made the week and insightful perspectives from across a dynamic and diverse region. We've had some significant developments in the ASEAN bloc this week, but now we begin with this week's big stories right here in Malaysia. Malaysia's Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has said that Malaysia enjoys better international recognition now due to strategic cooperation with major powers such as China and Russia. Anwar said the cooperation does not affect existing relations with Malaysia's traditional trading partners, including ASEAN, Europe and the United States. Anwar said recognition of the country continued to be strengthened when the US, through a letter from Trade Secretary Gina M. Raimondo on Monday, expressed appreciation for Malaysia's cooperation that allowed them to invest through US aeroplane maker Boeing. Now, the Prime Minister, Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, recently received a courtesy call from David Marriott, the chairman of Marriott International, one of the world's largest hospitality companies. Anwar said that he seized the opportunity to discuss strategies for promoting Malaysia as a premier tourist destination and expanding its flight network. He also added that he shared the policy of the Bandani government, which is now bearing fruit, with the country recording an increase in the number of foreign tourists by 28.9% for the first half of 2024, compared with the same period in 2023. Marriott International is embarking on an ambitious expansion plan here in Malaysia with 20 new hotels on the horizon to capitalize on the booming tourism and leisure sectors within Southeast Asia. Well, we're still with the Prime Minister. Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim has said that the government has always recognised the contribution of the Malaysian Chinese community in the country's socio-economic developments, as well as in economic, cultural, educational and industrial sectors. Anwar said he acknowledged and saluted the role of Chinese entrepreneurs in Malaysia and globally for assuming the task of propelling the local and international economy. The Prime Minister added that under the Madani economy framework, the government will continue to prioritise the enhancement of the economic landscape, fostering an environment conducive to investment and innovation. Well, the Deputy Prime Minister, Datuk Seri Dr. Ahmad Zahid Hamidi, has said that China has shown a high level of commitment in its bilateral cooperation with Malaysia to combat cross-border crime. He said this was among the key points discussed in a bilateral meeting with China's State Councillor and Minister of Public Security, Wang Xiaohong, followed his participation in the Global Public Security Cooperation Forum in Lianyungang, in the city of Jiangsu province in China. Now, Ahmad Zahid also said at the meeting that both countries have agreed to continue cooperation in several other areas, including enhanced joint training and the exchange of senior officers in the fields of enforcement and security. Well, in another development, the Deputy Prime Minister, Datuk Seri Dr. Ahmad Zahid Hamidi, also said that Malaysia will benefit from potential new investments from China in the halal industry that's worth 4 billion ringgit. He said the huge investment potential was a result of his and the Malaysian delegation's meeting with Chinese halal industry players on Tuesday in conjunction with the Malaysia-China Halal Business Forum in Shanghai. He said the investments cover various sectors, including herbal medicine, food and beverages, vaccines, cosmetics and pharmaceuticals. Now, the Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry, Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Abdul Aziz, said Malaysia is stepping up its game in the semiconductor playing field, moving up the value chain by focusing on the front-end segment. He noted that Malaysia has a competitive edge in the semiconductor sector, having been a key player in the electrical and electronics industry for over 5 decades. The minister highlighted that the country's semiconductor exports currently hold a global market share of 7%. Now, according to the Ministry of Plantation and Commodities Secretary General Datuk Yusran Shah Muhammad Yusof, Malaysia has consistently taken proactive steps to ensure that the environmental sustainability of its palm oil industry meets European standards and deforestation regulations. Nevertheless, he expressed concern that Malaysia's palm oil sector may still be impacted by the European Union deforestation-free regulation, potentially affecting its reputation, despite Kuala Lumpur's stringent environmental standards. He also added that this could lead to a decline in exports to the EU, which is a major market for palm oil. Well, the first autonomous rapid transit or ART hydrogen-powered smart tram for Malaysia's Kuching urban transportation system has rolled off the production line on Monday at China Railway Rolling Stock Corporation's Rail Transit Industrial Base in Yibin, southwest China's Sichuan province. Built by the CRRC Zhuzhou Electronic Locomotive Research Institute, the vehicle has been updated and even optimized in terms of intelligence, comfort, as well as energy saving and environmental protection. Now, the vehicle adopts distributed independent suspension power system with wider aisle and greater comfort. It has a climbing ability of 10%, which can be applied to a variety of road environments. Now, at the same time, the vehicle has significantly reduced its weight, making it more energy saving and environmentally friendly. Well, when I come back, I'll bring you more updates from across ASEAN countries. You're watching The Nation ASEAN Plus right here on Bernama TV. Stay with me. Welcome back. We continue The Nation ASEAN Plus with Indonesia. Antara, or the Indonesian news agency, has reported that Energy and Mineral Resources Minister Bahlil Lahadalia has highlighted 3 steps, one of which is well exploration, in order to realize energy self-sufficiency in Indonesia. He's noted that the second step to achieving energy self-sufficiency is to optimize the existing oil wells. Currently, the total percentage of lifting wells operated by state-owned oil and gas company PT Pertamina reaches only 65%. He has affirmed that this figure can continue to be increased with the application of technology or through other approaches. Furthermore, the third step is identifying the potential of ideal wells that are still productive. He noted that currently Indonesia is pushing for an increase in the use of renewable energy. Moving to Singapore, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi held talks with Vivian Balakrishnan, the Minister for Foreign Affairs in Singapore. That happened in Beijing earlier in the week on Monday. Wang said that as two forces working for stability, China and Singapore need to strengthen strategic coordination and communication in this turbulent world, noting that both China and Singapore have important domestic political agendas this year and are making steady progress toward their respective national development goals. Wang said the two sides have worked closely and learned from each other, providing significant impetus for the development of their modernization. And Pope Francis met with Singaporean President Tharman Shanmugaratnam and Prime Minister Lawrence Wong on Thursday as he continues a tour of Asia. During his visit to Singapore, Francis praised Singapore's economic strength as a testament to human ingenuity. He also urged the city-state to look after the weakest, especially foreign workers, as he opened the final leg of his tour through some of Asia's poorest countries in one of the world's richest. While still on Pope Francis, he also urged political leaders in Singapore, a global financial hub, to seek fair wages for the country's million-plus lower-paid foreign workers who make up a large part of the workforce. The 87-year-old pontiff singled out concern for Singapore's rapidly aging population and its migrant workforce, primarily centred in the construction and domestic services industries. Now, Singapore has about 1.1 million foreigners working with temporary work permits out of a total workforce of some 2.44 million. Many come from nearby countries such as Malaysia, China, Bangladesh and India. And in Thailand, its new Prime Minister, Paetongtarn Shinawatra, vowed on Thursday in her inaugural speech to Parliament to continue with many of her predecessors' plans to solve the country's economic woes. She said Thailand is facing several economic challenges and her government will urgently address these issues of high household debt, the rising cost of living and lagging income, describing them as urgent issues that the government needs to address in order to bring the hope of Thai people back as soon as possible. Paetongtarn also assured Parliament of her determination to serve the country honestly in the best interests of the public across all agencies, all ages and all expertise. While still with Thailand, it ramped up search and rescue efforts in the country's northern Chiang Rai province on Thursday as rising floodwaters engulfed the heart of the city. According to Thai authorities, at least 9 people have died and over 22,000 households have been affected in the recent bout of severe flooding in northern Thailand. Some flights have also been cancelled at Chiang Rai International Airport due to the severe weather. The flooding follows Typhoon YAGI, the most powerful storm in Asia so far this year. A Thai conservation scientist has told Reuters that Thailand's recent bout of flash flooding in the country's north is the result of climate change and disaster management.
The flooding that we have seen surely is it's also the result of a tropical storm, but on a bigger picture, I think it's just reflection of a lot of mismanagement that we have done in terms of disaster risk reduction or preparedness as well. I think we have this climate change as a big driver that now driven so many change in climate pattern. The rain intensity, it's so high that now we have the new term, right, that called rain bomb, because of the rain intensity that has never before existed. And I think this also overwhelmed our infrastructure that used to perhaps deal with a much less volume of water. And on top of that, we didn't do well enough in terms of preparedness.
Meanwhile, in Vietnam, according to state media, the death toll of Typhoon Yagi's aftermath in Vietnam reached 233 on Friday as more bodies were recovered in several landslides in the country's mountainous region. National broadcaster VTV said rescue workers have recovered 48 bodies and continue the search for 39 others missing after a flash flood buried Lang Nu, a hamlet in Lang Chai province, in mud and debris on Tuesday. Some 500 personnel and sniff dogs have been mobilized for the search, while relatives of the victims wait for the news of their loved ones next to a stack of coffins prepared for the deceased. Yagi was the strongest typhoon to hit Vietnam in decades. It made landfall last Saturday with winds of up to 149 kilometers per hour. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin welcomed his Vietnamese counterpart, General Pan Van Giang, to the Pentagon for bilateral talks on Monday. The two defense chiefs met to discuss a range of issues dealing with security in the Indo-Pacific region. The talks took place at an agonizing moment for Vietnam, as the death toll there has jumped to nearly 200 from a typhoon and subsequent heavy rains that also damaged factories in export-focused northern industrial hubs. In a quick bit, we'll take a look at some developments in other ASEAN countries. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. You're watching The Nation, ASEAN Plus. Welcome back. You're still with me right here on The Nation ASEAN Plus, where we bring you news updates from across ASEAN countries. Let's continue with the latest from the Philippines right now. According to a statement released by the Chinese Foreign Ministry, Chinese Vice Foreign Minister held a bilateral consultation mechanism, or otherwise known as a BCM meeting, on the South China Sea with the Philippine Undersecretary of Foreign Affairs in Beijing on Wednesday. At the meeting, the two sides had a candid and in-depth exchange of views on the maritime issues between China and the Philippines, in particular the question of the Xianbinjiao, or the reef, in the South China Sea. The Chinese side reiterated its principled position on the question of the Xianbinjiao and urged the Philippine side to immediately withdraw the relevant vessels there. China says it will firmly safeguard its sovereignty and the seriousness and effectiveness of the declaration on the conduct of parties in the South China Sea. The two sides agreed to continue to maintain communication through diplomatic channels, including the BCM. Well, moving on to crime news that has been trending in the Philippines this week. The Philippine celebrity Pastor Apollo Cuboloy, the self-proclaimed appointed son of God, pleaded not guilty on Friday to a charge of sex trafficking. He is also due to enter his plea later on Friday to charges of child abuse before another court. He's facing a raft of charges in the Philippines and in the US, including sex trafficking, money laundering and child abuse, and was arrested on September 8 after a weeks-long search for his church's sprawling 30-hectare compound by more than 2,000 security personnel. Cuboloy is also followed by millions of people in the Philippines, where church leaders hold heavy sway in politics. And in Cambodia, Xinhua reported, based on an official report released on Tuesday, Cambodia's international trade volume reached $36.48 billion in the first 8 months of 2024. That's up 16.5% from $31.32 billion over the same period last year. According to the General Department of Customs and Excise report, the kingdom's total exports amounted to $17.58 billion during the January to August period just this year, a year-on-year increase of 16.7%. And total imports were valued at $18.9 billion, that up 16.2%. China remained the top trading partner of Cambodia during the period, followed by the US, Vietnam, Thailand and Japan. Well, before we wrap, let's shift our focus now to some news updates from outside the ASEAN region, but still related to ASEAN. Bangladesh is seeking Malaysia's help as chairman of ASEAN next year in 2025 to support its application to become a sectoral dialogue partner and enhance trade and investment linkages with the 10-member regional grouping. Bangladesh's High Commissioner to Malaysia, Muhammad Shamim Ahsan, said once Malaysia assumes the chair of ASEAN next year, it will be better placed to ensure Dhaka's application is considered favourably by the 10 economies. With the country's pivotal position in South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, or the SAARC, he said there was huge potential for economic benefits by collaborating with the Southeast Asian grouping. And along with other Central Asian countries, Turkmenistan has expressed a keen interest in engaging with ASEAN. In a Facebook post on Tuesday, Malaysia's Foreign Ministry, also known as Wisma Putra, said that the message was conveyed to Foreign Minister Datuk Seri Mohamad Hassan during his visit with the Turkmen counterpart Rashid Meradov, who is also Vice President at Turkmenistan's Foreign Affairs Ministry, on Monday. Now, Wisma Putra said both foreign ministers have reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening the bilateral relations between the two countries in a wide area of cooperation, which includes trade and investment, the halal industry, education, tourism, culture and capacity building. And here are some updates, or rather the latest updates from the ASEAN headquarters. The Committee of Permanent Representatives to ASEAN, or CPR, and the ambassadors of China, Japan and the Republic of Korea met for the second time this year at the ASEAN headquarters for the 21st CPR+3 meeting. The agenda included a review on the progress made in implementing the ASEAN +3 Cooperation Work Plan that runs from 2023 to 2027, and also discussions on the future direction of APT cooperation, as well as preparations for the upcoming 27th APT Summit, scheduled for October this year in Vientiane, Laos. Well, that's all the time we have. This has been your weekend insight into ASEAN. Do stay informed with the Nation ASEAN Plus that only happens right here on Bernama TV. Now, to keep yourself updated, do log on to bernama.com. This will also link you to our social media platforms as well. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.